Shadow's GF1 is one of its most compact light, at least when used with the shorty tube, that allows the accommodation of 16340 size batteries, or in my case I'm currently using an 18350 IMR in here. Now the light did arrive, as with the other lights, in generic box and packaging with nothing but a label that shows the model as well as the version. Currently it's just a cool white. Potentially there is a neutral white version as well, and it did also come with the 18650 size tube that has the integrated lanyard. Well, I shouldn't say integrated, I mean it is removable, but the lanyards like as on the GM26 and SL3. Now I'll get to this in a bit, but to cover the light, it does feature a side switch as its only control mechanism, electronic side switch. So it does require depressing for 2 seconds in order to turn the light on, and then another press to cycle through the modes. So high, medium, low. These modes are not memorized, and at any point if you press the switch twice, it'll go into strobe. But as with the other lights, as you saw, it'll cycle to the next level before engaging strobe. Now to shut off the light, you do have to depress and hold 2 seconds again. Now, as I've previously covered before, a quick way to get around that 2 second delay is just simply click twice to activate strobe, and again to activate a different level. So that way you bypass that 2 second delay. Now style-wise, it almost reminds me, I guess, perhaps a little submarine with the little periscope that extends out of here or something like that. It's rather interesting because, you know, there's all these square cuts, although they are nicely deburred, so I don't feel any sharpness here. Likewise with the tail cap, this is fairly nice and smooth. So you see the same element here. There's that plug as with the GM26 and SL3, and that's just not simply a solid piece milled there, but rather a actual individual piece pressed into there. Now it does feature a texture reflector in the stainless steel bezel, and a XML, I believe in this case it's a T6 pumping out around 450 lumens. Peering underneath the head, you'll notice, like as with the SL3 and GM26, there's just a positive tip there, no spring, so you cannot use flat top cells, or at least you probably potentially would need a magnet. Of course, safety advocates would say that that's not advisable, but again, provided that you are comfortable with using magnets and you understand the precautions necessary for using lithium-ion cells, it is a alternative, if an imperfect one. Underneath the tube, you will see there's just a spring there at the tail end, and as mentioned, this is a separate plug that's milled in. I don't know how that affects water resistance, but I'll test that out later. Now the threads are trapezoidal cut, but they are anodized, so you can lock out the light to prevent accidental activation, although I do feel with the 2 second delay that does greatly mitigate that from happening. Now with the 18650 tube and a Iridium 3400 with the flat tip, I did test out to confirm that the light does can accept it without the use of a magnet. Case in point. In either configuration, the Shadow GF1 is one of the most compact for its form factor. So, case in point, here's Nitecore's P25, which ranks as pretty much on the larger end of the single 18650 lights. This is Nightwalker's 550N3, which is more of a typical average size 18650 size light, albeit in turbo head form. Here's Shadow's GF1 itself. Xeno's S38, which ranks as one of the most compact 18650 size lights, and Sunway's Man's V11R, which is actually a single CR123 size light. Here it is lined up against a Iridium 3400 cell, as you can see. Overall, not too much bigger than the cell itself. And here it is amongst other single cell CR123 size lights. So you have Zebra Light's S330 itself, also a cyclic switch. Sunway Man's M11R that does utilize a rotary fixed position ring switch. The Shadow's GF1. Sunway Man's V11R with the variable rotating ring switch. And Surefire's venerable E1E. Now keep in mind though that these can all only accommodate maximum size of 16340 cells, and the Shadow GF1 is slightly chunkier because it can accommodate a 18350 size battery. And here it is side by side with a AW IMR 18350 size battery, as well as standard AW 16340 battery. The GF1 features a texture reflector, which I rather like on smaller EDC size lights. Reason being that lights of this size typically were not meant to throw very far unless you're talking like a spheric or a deft anyway. So as such, I actually prefer a floodier beam profile, especially for night use, so I can see, you know, more of my peripheral vision. Now here it is on high. I'm going to back that up away slowly so you can see the beam profile. As you can see, a very nice transition between the hotspot and the spill. There is a very tight circular transition. Now I do have this on, again, f2.8, 1/400th of a second on auto white balance, but that green that you're seeing is a bit exaggerated, although I would say, looking at it in real life, it is closer to a yellowish / greenish tint, but nothing as dramatic as you're seeing there. Right. Likewise, all of these, I'm not sure if you're picking that up since it's on an LCD screen. I do see like these rings here that's only visible on the LCD screen, that's not visible in real life. So it is a very, very smooth transition here. Now I'm going to transition that to medium mode. And you're likely seeing some minute flickering, but again, I'm not sure if this light utilizes PWM. I'll check later, and I'll put that into my review. And finally, on low. I feel that the levels are pretty well spaced out and very usable, although low for night use is probably, especially for like say dark adapted eyes, a little bit on the bright side for for indoors use, but perhaps pretty good outdoors. Now beam angle wise, I would say roughly it's about 80 degrees for the spill, and the center hotspot's roughly about 25 to 30 degrees, which is again, like I said, a preferred flood profile that I like for EDC size lights. Now fit and finish wise, the anodization is fairly good. It does match between the head and body, although I'm probably detecting slightly darker at the head side, but nothing missing in between the grooves, as well as the sharp edges here. Now one thing is that the O-ring is rather thin, so it does slide back and forth, I've noticed, as I'm screwing this on. So case in point, it will start shifting that down a little bit. But overall, again, I'll test to see whether that has any effect on the water resistance. In conclusion, I gotta say, this is a pretty neat light. If I were to change certain things though, I don't like the fact of these sharp corners here. That can catch on either clothes or whatever you stuff this into, perhaps your pockets or whatnot. It is fairly sharp there. But overall fit and finish is pretty solid, as with most of the recent releases. Again, as you can see, the anodization is slightly off between the head and the body. It does, as mentioned, with the 18650 size tube, give it more different configurations, so thus making it pretty useful. Now, again, I am not overly fond of this particular UI. I would like to see them perhaps change it if possible to simulate Zebralight's side switch so that there's more modes, and to slightly increase the delay between the mode switching so you don't accidentally activate the strobe mode. Because it can accommodate 18350 cells, it does again further add to its versatility. So it could accommodate that as well as 16340 size batteries. Overall, another solid release from Shadow, and I look forward to more. That concludes this review, and as part of FTC disclosures, the Shadow GF1 was provided by sbflashlights.com for review. Thanks again for watching.